Let's begin. And I'd like to welcome you all to the April 23rd, 2020 special meeting of the West Sacramento Area Flood Control Agency. We're meeting this morning live via teleconference pursuant to the Governor's Order N29-20 to reduce the spread of COVID-19. I hope you're all still safe and well, and we'll get through this in a timely manner. Members of the public have been asked to participate in the meeting by live stream and to have submitted comments in writing to the meeting clerk by 9 a.m. today. So with that, will the clerk please call the roll?
Chair Ramos.
Here.
Vice Chair Sandine.
Here.
Director Ledesma.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, let's begin with the meeting. The agenda, you guys, I don't see where we approve the agenda. Is that still part of our process, Jen?
So it's under general admissions now. All we do is take action on the consent agenda.
Okay, then did we have any public matters presented to us? Public comments matters?
We did not receive any public comments for this meeting.
Thank you. Item 1B, report out on closed session. Mr. Nevis.
This is Ralph Nevis. Can you hear me?
Yes.
The board did meet in closed session to discuss with legal counsel the two pending litigation matters listed on the closed session agenda. The board took no reportable action.
Thank you. Item 1C, monthly and year-to-date review of expenses.
Good morning, members of the board. I will be reporting out on the revenue and expenses for the month of February 2020. In Fund 870, the beginning balance was approximately $8.8 million. There was no revenue, and there was a transfer of $5 million from 870 to 871. This was an action that the board approved back at the February meeting to move remaining unassigned funds from 870 to 871 to help maintain a positive balance in the CIP Fund 871, making the ending cash position for Fund 870 the approximately $3.8 million. The starting balance for Fund 871 was $22,500. The agency received $5.1 million in revenue, with the majority of that from the before mentioned transfer. Expenses were $516,000, and the ending cash position for Fund 871 was approximately $4.5 million. At the end of the month, the agency also received $9.5 million in advance funding from the state. And so looking at the year-to-date position with all three funds combined, we're looking at a healthy $18.8 million. As of April 21st, 2020, the agency's combined cash position is approximately $17.6 million. And that concludes my report. Do any of you members of the board have any questions for me?
Any questions or comments, board members? Thank you, Jen. Thank you very much. We'll move on to the consent items, items 2 through 5. Does anybody have any comments or questions on any of the consent items?
I'll move consent.
I have one question, I guess, I'd like to make to Brian, and it concerns the approval of an award of the contract. Just kind of an informational item. I remember looking at the environmental documents, and it's mentioned in the staff report the need to analyze and figure out the mitigation costs going forward. Do you kind of have a estimated idea of what those mitigations may cost to the air control boards and or the greenhouse gas funds?
Yes, Tom. For the greenhouse gas funds, we recently purchased mitigation credits for $1,600. We were able to skirt all the requirements of the California Climate Action Committee because we're not selling credit. They had requirements where they wanted our articles of incorporation, bank statements, and everything else. It being that we were buying such a small value of credits, we were able to do away with all of that, which would have cost us more than actually purchasing the credits. So that satisfies our greenhouse emission credits. And then the NOx emissions credits, it's a 5% administrative fee on top of the $1,500 per ton. And the estimate in the supplemental EIR says that we're going to be about $39,000 for the NOx emissions. And that's a high estimate. That's a conservative estimate. We might be as low as $20,000. It all depends on what the kind of equipment the contractor uses and how long the time frame drags out with those emissions.
Okay, thank you very much. Director Sandine made a motion to move the consent item.
I'll second.
It's been moved by Sandine, seconded by Ledesma. Clerk, would you call the roll?
Okay, Director Ledesma,
Aye.
Vice Chair Sandine,
Aye.
Chair Ramos,
Aye. I believe motion carries unanimously, correct?
Yes.
Thank you. Moving on to item 7, which was WSAFCA project updates.
Morning, Chair Ramos, members of the board. As staff has pointed out to me, this could either be a long report or a very short one. As you're well aware of where we are with the borrow restoration contract, and I would like to ask Brian if he would to give the board just an update or a quick estimate on when we expect to see staging of equipment and for the project to actually begin rolling.
We will likely see it the first week of May. There are still some issues that need to be resolved at the Echo Water plant, such as maintaining a construction access road and some survey for the dirt before we start removing it. So we need to work with the contractor and find out what those requirements are and when they can do those before they start construction on the WSAC side. But I anticipate the first week of May as far as seeing staging equipment, and the second week of May as far as seeing dirt moved and the equipment moving on site.
Thank you, Brian. For the drainage project, I think we're about 5 weeks away from being complete. They're currently in the working in the O&M corridor, out of the way of public right of way. With the weather being so nice, things are moving along quite nicely. So that's on track. For the levee improvement project, we're closing things out with the Board of Senior Consultants. We just received the final report of the 3 R's letter, the resilience, robustness, and redundancy. And then I think we're still looking for their summary report that would close out the safety assurance review. From environmental support, the archaeological monitoring report has been complete for some time and submitted to the Corps. There's been a couple of rounds of comments back and forth with GEI. Mark, has that been officially accepted by the Corps, or are we still waiting their final acknowledgement that it's complete?
I got an email from Jennifer. I think you did too. You're CC on it. So Jen pinged them. We're still waiting on SHPO for any comments, but it looks like it's probably going to close out, and then we'll get the official closeout from the Corps, as much as it ever closes out.
All right, thank you, Mark.
Yeah.
All right, Southport Restoration Project. Paul, I'm going to ask you if you wouldn't mind giving the board an update on this particular item. There's a few moving pieces out there. I know they're in the process of reinstalling the irrigation system, but maybe a quick update.
So yeah, that's exactly right. So fish screens arrived this week. Irrigation is going to start rolling, or they're going to start moving on reinstalling irrigation both in the north and the south offset areas. They're noticing that there is some lack of moisture, especially in the areas that aren't in the lower elevations of the channels. If you've been walking out there, if you walked out there at all, you know that they've been doing a lot of spraying for broadleaf weeds. They flourished quite a bit after the rain we had in March, and then all the sunshine we've had in the beginning of this month. So that's what's been going on. We're moving up a schedule on conducting a census to ensure that if there is some plant mortality, that we have enough lead time for the nurseries to give us plants by the fall. So that's my update.
And then Paul, have we officially entered the maintenance period or established a maintenance period? And what's the duration of that?
Yeah, so there are key factors or elements in the bid itself and their contract. We went through plant acceptance in March. So that begins a 4-year maintenance period after that. So yeah, they're in the maintenance period, and so there's annual weed abatements, and then to make, they have performance objectives relative to plant health and plant survival.
All right, thank you, Paul. And then one last thing related to Southport. I think right at the beginning of the month, what appears to be the final testing event was conducted, the sampling event for the former Time Oil site. Non-detect were the results of that sampling. And so Paul is working with our consultant SCS to draft a no further action request letter to submit to the regional board. So hopefully that goes well, and we will be able to close that particular site out. And is everybody hearing me okay? My computer is telling me that I have a weak connection.
Sounds good. You're there.
Okay. So I'm going to move on to the federal project. We're continuing to have our bi-weekly meetings, well, twice a month really, with the project delivery team, which includes the Army Corps of Engineers and the state of California, as well as our staff with WSAFCA and our expanded design team, MGE and sub-consultants. We're advancing to the 65% design milestone, which is expected middle of June. The lion's share of the work right now is being conducted by Blackburn. And they've completed most of the laboratory tests for a couple of the segments, and they're wrapping up the laboratory tests for one of the remaining segments in the middle of the Gila bypass levee. It appears anyway that the design is going to recommend no remediation measures in the upper third upstream portion of the reach. The lower third below Highway 80. We're not sure whether or not there's going to be a slurry wall recommended there, or perhaps a landside seepage berm. And then really where the analysis is going to be focused is the middle section that basically runs between Union Pacific Railroad and I-8. There's likely going to be some significant remediation measures there. That segment was not anticipated to have any remediation measures. We're not anticipated by the GRR to have any remediation measures. So we're going to begin that discussion now with the Corps, that our recommendations for the remediation measures are going to differ slightly from what the GRR had recommended. And we're going to, but it appears anyways that we'll be able to proceed as planned, and to repair the segments as needed, so that we can have a robust Gila bypass levee when all is said and done. We've received the design water surface elevation from the Corps for that particular reach, and that's what we're using to base the analyses on. We are just kicking off, the Corps anyways, is just now kicking off a system-wide hydraulic basis of design for our entire project. A small tech team was formed sort of ad hoc with our Brian Brown as well as DWR, and then the tech leads at the core. They'll be reporting out at today's PDT meeting some of the assumptions or recommendations that they're going to make for that system-wide hydraulic base of design moving forward. We also had a kickoff meeting with the risk cadre from the Corps on this risk-informed design review. There are bi-weekly meetings moving forward. We have another one of those meetings today. It still remains to be seen how they're going to engage and what type of feedback they're going to be providing relative to the design. So we'll have to report out on that in future board meetings as that goes along. And I think that's about wraps up where we are in terms of project design. And then on to the federal budget and advocacy. I'm sure the board is aware of the various different COVID-19 pandemic budget packages that have been issued. There's lots of discussion back in DC about economic stimulus packages being developed. Timing of which and what form they take still remains to be seen. I think Holland and Knight provided a nice summary of some of the measures that the House has recommended in, and I forget the name of the package that they've kind of got hanging in the wings. But you know, where those infrastructure type projects would be focused. And then Holland and Knight also provided a comparison of what was done back in the American Recovery and I forget Act, ARA Act back in 2009, I think it was, and how much money was provided in that package for civil works, among other things. Between Holland and Knight and Mike Strawn, we're keeping a very close watch on the activities back in DC to be able to take advantage of any infrastructure stimulus package that might come out and receiving funds for civil works projects. I will also say that the Corps has reached out to me to ask about the next project, next increment after the Yolo bypass piece we're working on now. We're focusing on Sac River North. We're discussing sizing of the project, bullet points for recommendations on why that's the next reach, and how much funding would be required for the next that next increment. And so all indications are that the Corps is preparing, should they be requested, to provide recommendations for projects to be funded in some type of infrastructure stimulus package. All good news. We've been in close coordination with Matsui's staff and keeping her abreast of these efforts. And we'll reach out to her for support as needed as things start to ripen. Before I move on, well, and I think that's pretty much what I wanted to talk about. You can see below what we've gone on over the last couple of months. Any questions about federal budget or advocacy? Our main asks are still the same. We're still expecting to see a little over $2 million for the Corps for the WSAC project in the regular order of business appropriations bill for FY21. And we also want to be able to see a significant plus up in funds for the Army Corps, allow us to receive construction funding in the Corps work plan along with the New Start designation. So those are still teed up and we're still going to push those forward under the normal order of business. So whichever comes first, appropriations bills or some type of stimulus package, we want to be able to take advantage of that and try and get our project under construction. So with that, I'll turn it over to any questions the board may have.
Thank you. Pretty complete. Report. Thank you. Questions?
Mr. Chair, thanks. So it sounds to me that the COVID-19 impacts are more forward, like in the future, and that the day-to-day issues we haven't terms of the day-to-day operations and what's going on in terms of the projects, it doesn't sound like there's been a direct impact. Are there any things that we've had to change or that we need to consider in terms of what's going on right now with the projects? Any additional safety issues, et cetera, that we need to be aware of? I do know that in the offset area, there was some damage, I understand, from ATVs. And I'd also like to hear about if that was addressed and what any kind of fiscal impacts that may have as well.
Very good. So I will say that from the flood team supporting WSAFCA's efforts that it's been relatively seamless in our ability to continue to move our projects forward, which is very fortunate. And I'm actually quite pleased with our ability to really not miss a beat. So that's real encouraging. And I don't see any changes coming in the near future, short term or long term, that would inhibit our ability to keep moving things forward. Our contractors working in the field have all submitted sort of COVID-19 safety plans. And so they are taking appropriate steps to work safely in the field. Our standing instructions to city staff is minimize, time in the field. But when you do go out, make sure to observe proper distancing and take good, proper safety measures. And so that seems to be working well also. Yes, there have been indications of ATVs in the offset area. We contacted the city, Paul Hostley, for some public outreach, and I know he got things on Facebook right away, and the neighborhood app, which I'm drawing a blank on right now. A lot of positive response, a lot of support from the community, and I think there's a lot more eyes out there. At least in theory, there's a lot more eyes out there looking now to try and help protect this great investment that we've made and keep us safe. We've also provided a map of likely entrance locations to WSAC PD, and they're doing additional patrols and keeping an eye out. Obviously working closely with RD 900 for anything they see and or any steps that they may be able to take to shore up any holes. And we're also trying to keep the gates shut and or locked as much as possible during the working hours to not disrupt the work that's going on. We've also received comments like, hey, how do you expect to keep people out of there when the gate's wide open? And it's like, well, yeah, but there's still work going on. So we're just trying to be smart about it and not be lazy. So those efforts have been communicated to the folks out in the field.
Thank you.
Does that answer your?
Yes.
Okay.
Thanks.
We're also looking at placing a couple of signs talking about the fact that there's a restoration project in progress so that people are aware of what's actually happening and it's not an area that's open to the public or they're able to transverse it any way they want. So that's the other plan.
Thanks, Paul. That was going to be my question, but thanks for bringing that up.
I do see people walking along the top there. Is that under control and allowed?
It's completely allowed, and generally people are really good. There's just not a whole lot of non-compliance. It's not serious. It's episodic.
Yeah.
And, the gates that are the various control points have pass-throughs for hiking and or biking. And quite frankly, I think it's encouraged for folks to get up there and take a look around and just have more eyes and people and eyes on the levee. And that way we hopefully can minimize the unwanted use up there.
Good.
We did receive a complaint must be from somebody who frequently walks the levee that dog owners aren't being responsible. And so we're working with the city parks department for possibly placing some signs at some of the entrance points, similar to what's posted at other city facilities to remind folks to be responsible.
A list of do's and don'ts.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions, guys? Okay. With that, thank you very much, Greg.
Oh, you're welcome.
You know, it's a little more difficult doing it this way, but it went well. So any director's comments? From see you shaking heads, so I will take that as a no. I don't have any either, so I'll adjourn the meeting. Thank you all, and Greg will be back at our regular third Thursday in May.
Excuse me, yeah, May 21st.
Okay, very good. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, be safe.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.